I stood in my childhood living room, the same worn carpet beneath my feet, the same family photos on the mantel. But everything felt different. My father's face was red, veins bulging in his neck as he jabbed his finger toward the door. "All you do is take," he shouted. "You've never given this family anything." His words hit like punches. My mother sat frozen on the couch. My sister Jade stared at her phone. "If you had any pride left," he continued, "you'd walk out that door right now." So I did. I picked up my keys, looked at each of them one last time, and left without saying a word. What none of them knew was that I'd been paying for Jade's college education for 2 years. The drive from my parents' house in suburban Columbus felt longer than usual. Every streetlight seemed dimmer, every familiar turn a reminder of what just happened. I gripped the steering wheel of my Honda Civic and tried to focus on the road, but my father's words kept replaying in my mind. "All you do is take. You've never given this family anything." I'm Roman, 28 years old, and I work as a software engineer for a mid-sized tech company in Columbus. Nothing fancy, nothing glamorous, just steady work that pays well enough. 3 years ago, my life changed in a way nobody in my family ever knew about. My younger sister Jade had been accepted to Northwestern University. She'd worked so hard in high school, perfect grades, volunteer work, leadership positions. Northwestern was her dream school, and she'd gotten in. The problem was money. The annual tuition was $60,000. My parents, hard-working as they were, couldn't afford it. My father managed a warehouse, my mother taught elementary school. They had modest retirement savings they absolutely refused to touch, and I understood why. They'd spent their lives building that security. Jade's face when she got the acceptance letter was pure joy. Then came the financial aid package, partial scholarship, some grants, but still a gap of $15,000 per year. I watched that joy drain from her face. I watched my parents try to hide their worry. I watched my sister start talking about community college instead. So I did something nobody knew about. I called Northwestern's financial aid office, spoke to a counselor, and set up a payment plan. Anonymous donor, $15,000 per quarter, directly from my savings account. I told them to list it as an anonymous family benefactor. The university was happy to accommodate. They see these arrangements more often than people think. For 2 years, I paid. That's $120,000 total. I lived in a tiny apartment with furniture from thrift stores. I drove my 12-year-old Civic that made weird noises when I turned left. I brought lunch to work every single day. I never took vacations. I wore the same 5 shirts in rotation. My coworkers probably thought I was cheap or strange, but I didn't care. Meanwhile, family gatherings became increasingly uncomfortable. Every Sunday dinner, every holiday, my father would find something to criticize. Why wasn't I married yet? Why didn't I buy a house? Why was I wasting my life in a small apartment when I had a good job? He'd compare me to his friends, sons who had families and mortgages and new trucks. He'd shake his head and make comments about me not contributing to the family legacy. My mother would offer weak defenses. "Roman's doing fine," she'd say quietly. "Hez happy." But she never pushed back hard, never stood up for me in any meaningful way. She'd give me apologetic looks across the dinner table, and I'd shrug like it didn't bother me. Jade, brilliant and focused on her studies, remained completely unaware of what I was doing for her. She'd come home for breaks and talk about her classes, her friends, her internship opportunities. Sometimes she'd make offhand comments about how I never seemed to visit Chicago, how I was always working, how I seemed kind of self-centered. Those comments stung more than she knew. I never told anyone the truth because I wanted Jade to focus on her education without feeling guilty. I wanted her to feel proud of herself, to believe she'd earned everything through her own merit and the support of scholarships. I didn't need recognition, I just needed her to succeed. The evening that everything exploded started innocently enough. I'd driven over for Sunday dinner like I did most weeks. My mother had made pot roast. My father was watching football. Jade was home for fall break. We sat around the table, passing dishes, making small talk. Then my father asked about my weekend plans. I mentioned I was happy just staying in, maybe watching some movies, nothing special. That simple statement triggered him. He put down his fork and stared at me. "You're 28 years old," he said. His voice was already rising. "You have no ambition. You live like a college student. You embarrass this family." I tried to deflect. "I'm comfortable, Dad. I like my life." But he wouldn't let it go. He started listing everything I was doing wrong. No wife, no kids, no house, no nice car. He said his coworkers asked about me, and he had nothing impressive to say. He said I was wasting my potential, wasting my life, wasting the opportunities they'd given me. That last part made my blood boil. What opportunities? It put myself through college with loans and part-time jobs. It built my career alone. But I bit my tongue. Then came the final blow. He stood up, face red, and shouted that all I did was take from this family, that I'd never given anything back, that I was selfish and ungrateful, that if I had any pride left, I should walk out and not come back until I'd made something of myself. The room went silent. My mother's eyes were wide, but she said nothing. Jade looked uncomfortable but didn't intervene. I felt something break inside me, not just hurt, but something deeper, a clarity. I stood up slowly, picked up my keys from the counter, and walked to the door. My mother called my name weakly, but I didn't turn around. I got in my car and drove away. Sitting in my apartment that night, I stared at my phone for a long time. Then I made a call to Northwestern's financial aid office. It was Sunday evening, so I left a detailed voicemail. I identified myself by my donor account number, explained that I needed to cancel all future payments effective immediately, and requested confirmation in writing. I felt a strange mixture of emotions. Liberation, because I was finally setting a boundary. Sadness, because this meant Jade would face consequences for something that wasn't her fault. Anger, because after everything I'd sacrificed, my own father thought I'd given nothing. But mostly, I felt clear. If I never gave anything, then there was nothing left to keep giving. 3 weeks passed. I blocked my parents' phone numbers but left Jade's contact information active. I couldn't bring myself to cut her off completely, even though part of me wanted to. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into a major project, staying late, volunteering for extra assignments. My manager noticed and pulled me aside to say I was doing exceptional work. 2 weeks after the family blow-up, I was promoted to senior software engineer with a salary increase of $20,000 per year. My coworkers celebrated with me over lunch. They asked if I was excited, and I said yes. But the truth was I felt numb. The promotion I'd have been thrilled about a month ago felt hollow. I'd achieved something significant, and there was nobody to share it with. I started seeing a therapist. Doctor Sarah Chen had an office downtown, and her first available appointment was on a Wednesday evening. I sat in her calm, plant-filled office and told her everything. I didn't know it yet, but the timeline was already in motion. Jade received a letter from Northwestern's financial aid office on a Tuesday afternoon. She was in her apartment near campus, sorting through mail between classes. The university letterhead made her pause. She opened it expecting some routine financial aid reminder. Instead, she read that her anonymous benefactor had discontinued support effective immediately. She had an outstanding balance of $15,000 due within 2 weeks, or she would be dropped from enrollment for the spring semester. Jade read the letter 3 times, her hands shaking. Anonymous benefactor? Shed thought her partial scholarship and loans covered everything. Shed never known there was someone else paying part of her tuition. She immediately called home. Her mother answered on the 3rd ring. "Mom," Jade said, her voice tight with panic. "Did you know someone's been paying part of my tuition?" Her mother was silent for a moment. "What do you mean?" Jade read the letter aloud. Her mother's confusion was genuine. "What anonymous benefactor? We thought you had a full scholarship." "I never had a full scholarship," Jade said. She was starting to cry now. "I have partial aid, loans, and apparently someone was covering the rest. $15,000 per year. For 2 years, and now they stopped. Her mother went quiet. Jade could hear muffled conversation in the background, her father asking what was wrong. Then her father's voice came on the line. "This doesn't make sense," he said. "Who would pay that kind of money without telling us?" "I don't know," Jade said. "But if I don't pay $15,000 in 2 weeks, I'm getting kicked out." Her father made some dismissive comment about checking with the university, that there must be a mistake. But Jade could hear uncertainty in his voice. After they hung up, Jade sat on her apartment floor and tried to think. Who would do this? Who had that kind of money and cared enough about her education to pay anonymously? Then it hit her. Roman. But that couldn't be right. Roman lived in a tiny apartment and drove an ancient car. Her father always said Roman barely made ends meet with his little tech job. There was no way Roman had $120,000 to spend on her tuition. Still, the thought wouldn't leave her mind. Back at the family home, Jade's parents were having a similar realization. Her mother sat at the kitchen table, very quiet, while her father paced. "It couldn't have been Roman," he insisted. "He doesn't have that kind of money." My father's pride wouldn't let him believe the truth. He convinced himself that if Roman really had been the benefactor, he would have said something. He told himself this was some kind of manipulation, that Roman was being dramatic. But my mother knew better. She'd always known I was different from what my father wanted me to be. She'd seen my choices and recognized them as intentional, not failures. And now, sitting with the pieces of this puzzle, she understood exactly what I'd done. A week after the letter arrived, Jade couldn't take it anymore. She called me. My phone rang while I was at work. I saw her name and almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. "Roman," she said immediately. Her voice was thick with tears. "Please, I need to ask you something." I waited, saying nothing. "The tuition payments," she said. "The anonymous benefactor. Was it you?" My heart was pounding, but my voice came out cold and measured. "Why are you calling me?" She was crying harder now. "Please, Roman, I need to know. Did you pay for my school?" I thought about lying. I thought about saying I had no idea what she was talking about. But what would be the point? "Why does it matter, Jade?" "Because it stopped," she sobbed. "And I'm going to get kicked out, and if it was you, I need to understand why you stopped." I felt a flash of the old protectiveness, the instinct to fix her problem, but I pushed it down. "I never gave this family anything," I said quietly. "Dad made that very clear. So, I'm just living accordingly." "Roman." "No." She was almost hyperventilating. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I said. "You all made it clear what you think of me. So now, I'm showing you what it looks like when I actually give nothing." I hung up. I sat at my desk, staring at my computer screen, my hands trembling. Around me, coworkers typed and talked and lived their normal lives. I felt like I was underwater. My phone buzzed with texts from Jade. Apologies, explanations, desperate pleas. I read them all. Then I typed one response. Thought I never gave this family anything. Dad was right. So now, I'm living accordingly. I turned off my phone and went back to work. Jade, facing the reality of her situation, did what she had to do. She took out a high-interest private student loan for $15,000. The interest rate was brutal, nearly 12%, and the payments would start immediately, $250 per month on top of her existing loans. She was furious, but not just at the situation. She was furious at her father for driving Roman away. She was furious at herself for never noticing what Roman was sacrificing. She was furious at the whole family for being so blind. She texted me repeatedly over the next week, long paragraphs about how sorry she was, how she never meant to take me for granted, how she wished Shed paid more attention. She begged for a conversation, a chance to explain, to apologize properly. I responded exactly once. Thought I never gave this family anything. Dad was right. So now I'm living accordingly. Then I stopped reading her messages. At the family home, the atmosphere had become toxic. My mother and father argued constantly, something that almost never happened in their 30-year marriage. My mother revealed that Shed always suspected I was struggling financially but living simply by choice. She admitted Shed wondered if I was helping somehow but never pushed because my father's pride wouldn't allow the conversation. My father doubled down on his denial. Hess being dramatic, he insisted. If he really was paying, he would have told us. This is emotional manipulation. But even as he said it, he sounded less certain. Then other problems started appearing. The kind that happen to every family but feel catastrophic when resources are already stretched thin. Late October brought the first cold snap. The family's furnace, 10 years old and barely maintained, gave out completely. The repair technician delivered bad news. The heat exchanger was cracked, a dangerous situation that couldn't be patched. Repair would cost $4,000, but given the age of the unit, replacement made more sense. $8,000 for a new furnace. My father checked their emergency fund. $3,000. They'd been meaning to build it up, but life always got in the way. 2 days later, my mother's car started making terrible grinding noises. The transmission was failing. $2,000 to repair, and the mechanic strongly suggested she not drive it until it was fixed. My father borrowed his brother's truck to get my mother to work. The stress was visible on both their faces. Jade's loan payments started immediately, cutting into money she needed for groceries and rent. She picked up 2 part-time jobs, one at the university library and another at a coffee shop near campus. Between classes and 15 hours of work per week, she was exhausted. Her grades, previously impeccable, started to slip. She got a B- on a midterm, her first grade below a B+ since high school. I didn't know most of these details at the time. I'd blocked them on social media, stopped checking in. I was building walls, protecting myself, focusing on my own healing. In therapy, Doctor, Chen validated my boundaries. You're not responsible for their crisis, she said. You gave generously for years. You're allowed to stop, especially when they refuse to see or appreciate what you were doing. But she also asked gentle questions. What do you want your relationship with your family to look like long-term? Is complete estrangement what you want, or are you protecting yourself until they demonstrate real change? I didn't have good answers. I just knew I couldn't go back to being invisible. From a distance, through mutual friends and coworkers who knew my family, information filtered to me in small pieces. I heard my father had borrowed money from my uncle. I heard Jade was working constantly. I heard my mother was taking on extra tutoring gigs. Part of me felt vindicated. See what happens when I'm not quietly holding things together, but another part felt guilty, the old instinct to fix and protect. Doctor, Chen reminded me that guilt was a trained response, not truth. They're learning consequences, she said. That's not your fault. That's life teaching them what you tried to tell them but they wouldn't hear. Then I got a message that changed things. It came through Facebook Messenger from my Aunt Carol, my mother's younger sister. Carol had always been kind to me, one of the few family members who asked about my life with genuine interest. Her message was long and careful. Roman, I hope you're doing okay. I know something happened with your dad, and nobody will give me the full story. But your mom has been crying every night. She told me she thinks you were paying for Jade's school, and your dad is too proud to admit he might have been wrong about you. I'm not taking sides, but I thought you should know how much pain everyone is in. Then she wrote something that hit me hard. Your dad has been different since you left. Quiet, withdrawn. I don't think he's sleeping. Your Uncle Frank says he's never seen your dad like this. I know he hurt you, Roman. Whatever he said must have been terrible for you to cut off all contact. But I also know he's struggling with something. Years ago, when you were about 12, your dad lost a major promotion to a younger colleague. He never really recovered from that. I think he's been projecting his own failures onto you ever since, seeing his disappointments when he looks at you instead of seeing who you actually are, she continued. I'm not asking you to forgive him or come back. I just thought you should understand that his cruelty comes from his own wounds, not from anything true about you. We're having Thanksgiving dinner at my house in 3 weeks. If you want to come, you're welcome. No pressure. I love you, kiddo. I read the message 5 times. Then I deleted it without responding, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. My father's promotion loss when I was 12, I remembered that year, had been angry all the time, snapping at everyone, withdrawn and bitter. My mother had walked on eggshells around him. Then gradually had seemed to return to normal. But maybe he never really had. Understanding someone's wounds doesn't erase the damage they cause. Dr. Chen said that in our next session when I told her about the message. But it can give you context. What you do with that context is up to you. I thought about Thanksgiving, 3 weeks away. Last year, I'd spent it at their house, eating dry turkey and listening to football. This year, I could be anywhere, do anything. The freedom felt strange. I decided to do nothing. I wouldn't reach out, wouldn't respond to invitations, wouldn't make any moves toward reconciliation. If they wanted me back, they'd have to prove they understood what they'd lost. They'd have to show real change. I turned off my phone notifications from family members and focused on my life. Work was going well. I'd started going to a climbing gym and made some friends there. I was reading again, something I'd stopped doing during the years of intense saving. I was rebuilding myself. But on Thanksgiving morning, everything changed again. November arrived with cold rain and gray skies. At work, I received an unexpected opportunity. My manager called me into her office and explained that our Seattle branch needed a senior engineer to lead a new project. It was a promotion in everything but title, with a substantial salary increase, 25% more than I was currently making. The position required relocation, but the company would cover moving expenses and offer a housing stipend for the first 6 months. Seattle, 3,000 miles from Columbus, a fresh start. I accepted on the spot. My manager was thrilled. She said I deserved this, that I'd proven myself capable of leadership and innovation. The move would happen after the new year, giving me 2 months to prepare. For the first time since leaving my family's house, I felt genuine excitement. Seattle meant rain and mountains and coffee culture and technology jobs everywhere. It meant nobody would know my history or my family. It meant I could build a life entirely on my own terms. I started researching neighborhoods, looking at apartments with views of Puget Sound, planning hiking trips to the Cascades. I imagined myself in a completely different context, free from the weight of family expectations and disappointments. Thanksgiving week arrived. My phone, which I'd mostly been ignoring, started buzzing constantly. Messages from extended family, cousins asking why I wasn't coming to Aunt Carol's dinner, uncles saying the family needed me. Distant relatives I barely knew suddenly concerned about my absence. Through these messages, I learned things I hadn't known. Jade had dropped 2 of her classes because her work schedule made attendance impossible. She was now behind on credits, putting her graduation timeline at risk. Instead of graduating in 4 years as planned, she'd need an extra semester, possibly 2. My parents had borrowed $5,000 from Uncle Frank to replace the furnace. They were making monthly payments, adding to their financial stress. My mother was working 6 days a week now, taking on extra tutoring sessions every Saturday to help cover bills. My father had become unusually quiet at family gatherings, withdrawn in a way that worried people. I absorbed this information with a strange detachment. These were consequences, natural results of choices and circumstances. I reminded myself I wasn't responsible for fixing everything. Thanksgiving Day, I spent alone in my apartment. I ordered Chinese food, watched football, and felt relief rather than loneliness. This was my choice, my boundary, my peace. That evening, around 7, someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole and my stomach dropped. Jade stood in the hallway, looking exhausted and thin. Her eyes were red, her hair pulled back messily. She wore a Northwestern sweatshirt and jeans, and she looked like she'd been crying for hours. I almost didn't open the door. I stood there, hand on the deadbolt, trying to decide. She knocked again. "Roman, I know you're in there. Your car's in the lot. Please, I drove 4 hours from Chicago. I'm not leaving until we talk." When I didn't respond, she sat down on the floor outside my door. I could see her through the peephole, leaning against the wall, pulling her knees to her chest. She's not going to leave, I thought, and eventually a neighbor will complain or call security. I opened the door. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "Come in," I said quietly. She stood and walked past me into my small living room. She looked around at my second-hand couch, my tiny TV, my sparse decorations. "This is where you've been living?" "Yes." "For how long?" 3 years. She sat on the couch and covered her face with her hands. I sat in the chair across from her and waited. When she finally looked up, her face was devastated. "I found the bank statements," she said. "Old ones, at Mom and Dad's house. I was looking for something else and found a box with your name on it. Papers from a few years ago. I saw the quarterly payments. $15,000, 4 times a year. I did the math. Roman. $120,000. I said nothing. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her voice broke. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" "Because you needed to focus on school," I said. "Not on guilt or obligation. You earned your spot at Northwestern. The money was just logistics." "Just logistics?" She was almost shouting now. "Roman, that's your entire life. You gave me your life. I gave you money," I corrected. "There's a difference." She shook her head violently. "You gave me everything. You lived in this tiny place, drove that terrible car, never went anywhere or did anything, all so I could have my dream. And we treated you like you were nothing. I treated you like you were nothing." I felt my carefully constructed walls beginning to crack. "You didn't know, but I should have noticed," she cried. "I should have asked why you lived the way you did. I should have paid attention. Instead, I made comments about you being self-centered. God, Roman, I'm so sorry." We sat in silence for a moment. I could feel old pain surfacing, the years of being invisible, of sacrificing without acknowledgement. "Why did you stop the payments?" she asked, finally. "I know Dad said horrible things. Mom told me some of it. But why punish me for what he said?" "I'm not punishing you," I said. "I'm setting boundaries. For 2 years, I gave everything I had to support your education, and my own father told me I never gave this family anything. So I decided to show him what that actually looks like. But I'm the one suffering," she said quietly. "I had to take out a loan I can't afford. I'm working 2 jobs, I dropped classes. My whole plan is falling apart, and I'm sorry for that," I said, and I meant it. "But Jade, I can't keep giving pieces of myself to a family that doesn't see me. It's killing me." She nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. "I understand. I do. But there's something else you need to know." "What?" "Dad's in the hospital." My chest tightened. "What happened?" "Heart attack. 3 days ago. It was mild. The doctors say he'll be fine. But it scared everyone. Has been asking for you, Roman. He knows it was you. Mom showed him the proof, the bank records, everything. He knows what you did." I felt dizzy. A heart attack. My father, who'd always seemed indestructible, was in a hospital bed. "He wants to see you," Jade said. "He needs to apologize. Please, Roman." I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Thanksgiving evening was quiet. Streetlights reflecting on wet pavement. "I can't," I said. "Why not?" "Because one apology doesn't erase 2 years of payments he never noticed. It doesn't erase a lifetime of making me feel inadequate. It doesn't fix anything, Jade." "I know," she said quietly. "But maybe it's a start." I turned to face her. "I'm moving to Seattle in January. New job, fresh start. I need to build a life where I matter, where I'm seen. I can't do that here." Her face fell. "You're leaving?" "Yes. What about us? What about me? You're my sister." "That doesn't change. But I need distance from this family for a while. Maybe a long while." She stood up, pulled a folded envelope from her pocket, and placed it on my coffee table. "This is from Mom. She asked me to give it to you if I saw you. I'm not going to beg you to read it or come to the hospital or anything else. You've given enough. But I want you to know that I love you. And I'm sorry. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of what you did for me." She walked to the door, paused with her hand on the knob. "One more thing. When I graduate, whenever that ends up being, I want you there. Not for Mom or Dad. For me. because none of this would have been possible without you." Then she left. I stood alone in my apartment, staring at the envelope on my coffee table. I didn't open it for 2 days. The envelope sat on my coffee table for 48 hours. I walked past it dozens of times. I moved it from the table to the kitchen counter, then back again. I picked it up, felt the weight of folded paper inside, but couldn't bring myself to open it. Saturday morning, I made coffee and sat on my couch with the envelope in my hands. Finally, I tore it open. The letter was written in my mother's careful handwriting, the same script I'd seen on birthday cards and grocery lists my whole life. "Dear Roman," it began. "I don't know if you'll read this, but I need to write it anyway. I need you to know that I see you now. I've always seen you, but I failed to protect what I saw. I failed you as a mother, and I'm so deeply sorry. I knew you were struggling financially. I noticed your old car, your small apartment, the way you never bought new clothes or took vacations. I told myself you were just practical, that you preferred simplicity. But deep down, I wondered if there was more to it. When Jade's tuition kept getting paid, when she never mentioned financial problems, I had a feeling someone was helping. I suspected it might be you, but I never asked. I never investigated. I let your father's narrative about your life stand unchallenged because it was easier than confronting him. That makes me complicit. I stood by while he criticized you, belittled your choices, made you feel small. I offered weak defenses instead of standing firmly beside you. I chose peace in my marriage over protecting my son, and that's unforgivable. You have spent years sacrificing for this family in silence. You gave Jade her future. You gave her opportunities she could never have had otherwise. And we repaid you with blindness and cruelty. Your father is ashamed, Roman. More ashamed than I've ever seen him. He can barely speak from the guilt. The heart attack wasn't just physical stress. It was the weight of realizing what Head done to you, what Head said, what Head lost. I'm not asking you to forgive him. I'm not even asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking you to know that I see you now. I see your strength, your generosity, your quiet dignity. I see what you've done and who you are, and I am so proud to be your mother, even though I don't deserve to be. Whatever you decide about us, about this family, I'll understand. If you need to walk away forever, I'll carry that grief, but I'll accept it. You've earned the right to live your life free from us. But please know this, you were never the problem. You were never inadequate or disappointing or selfish. You were exactly who you needed to be, and we were too broken to recognize it. I love you. I'm sorry. Those words aren't enough, but they're true. Mom, I read the letter 3 times. By the 3rd reading, I was crying. Not the angry tears I'd shed after leaving their house, but something different. Grief, maybe? Or release. I called Dr. Chen and asked for an emergency session. She had an opening that afternoon. In her office, I handed her the letter and watched her read it. When she looked up, her expression was thoughtful. "How does this make you feel?" she asked. "Seen," I said. "For the first time in my life, I feel seen by my mother. Is that enough?" "I don't know. Part of me wants it to be enough. Part of me is still angry that it took all this for her to finally stand up. Both of those feelings are valid," she said. "The question is, what do you want to do with them?" We talked for an hour. She helped me sort through the complexity, the validation I'd always needed, the anger that remained, the love that had never disappeared despite everything. By the end of the session, I knew what I needed to do. Not for them, but for myself. I drove to Cleveland that evening. The hospital was an hour and a half away, and I used the drive to prepare myself. I didn't know what it'd say or how it'd feel. I just knew I needed to face this. My mother was in the waiting room when I arrived. She looked exhausted, older than I remembered. When she saw me, she stood up slowly, tears already streaming. I expected her to rush over, to hug me, but she didn't. She just stood there, giving me space. "Hess in room 314, she said quietly. "Hess awake if you want to go in." I nodded and walked past her to the elevator. The hospital hallway was fluorescent, bright, and smelled of antiseptic. I found room 314 and paused outside. Through the small window in the door, I could see my father in the bed. He looked smaller than I remembered, diminished by hospital equipment and white sheets. I pushed open the door and stepped inside. He turned his head and saw me. His eyes filled with tears immediately. "Roman," he said. His voice was hoarse, weak. I stood at the foot of his bed and waited. "I was wrong," he said. No preamble, no excuses. Just those 3 words. "I was wrong." I still said nothing. He continued, slowly and painfully. "I saw my own failures when I looked at you. You were everything I wasn't. Successful without arrogance. Generous without needing recognition. Content without chasing status. And I hated it because it showed me what I should have been." I pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. "I'm listening." He closed his eyes for a moment, gathering strength. "When you were 19, in college, you had that full scholarship to MIT. Do you remember?" I nodded. Of course I remembered. It had been my proudest achievement. "You needed help with living expenses," he said. "Books, housing, food. The scholarship covered tuition, but not life. So I took out a loan, $10,000. I wanted to give you what you needed to succeed. I had no idea. Had never mentioned this. 2 months later, I lost my job at the warehouse," he continued. "Budget cuts. I couldn't keep up with the loan payments. It went to collections, destroyed my credit. I had to declare bankruptcy. Id tried to support you, and I failed completely." His voice broke. "I carried shame about that for years. Every time I saw you succeeding, it reminded me that I couldn't support you when it mattered. And when I found out what you did for Jade, giving everything to her when Id given you nothing, it broke me completely." He opened his eyes and looked directly at me. "You gave everything to Jade because I couldn't give you what you needed. And instead of thanking you, I destroyed you for it. I blamed you for showing me my own inadequacy. I'm so sorry, Roman. I'm so deeply sorry." I sat very still, processing this information. My father had tried to help me, had failed, and that failure had haunted him. His cruelty hadn't come from not caring, but from caring too much and being unable to bear his own helplessness. "It doesn't excuse what you said," I told him. "It doesn't erase the years of criticism." "I know," he said. "I know it doesn't. But I needed you to understand where it came from. Not to justify it, just to explain." We sat in silence for several minutes. Outside the room, hospital sounds continued. Inside, a father and son tried to find their way through decades of miscommunication and pain. "What happens now?" I asked finally. "That's up to you," he said. "I have no right to ask for anything. If you walk out and never come back, you'll deserve it." "I'm moving to Seattle in January," I said. "New job, fresh start." His face fell, but he nodded. "You deserve that. You deserve your own life, free from us." "I'm not sure if I can forgive you yet," I continued. "The hurt runs deep. But maybe I can understand you. Maybe that's a start." "That's more than I deserve," he whispered. I stood up to leave. My father reached out his hand. I looked at it for a moment, then took it. His grip was weak but sincere. "I'm going to work on being the father you deserved," he said. "Every day, I'm going to work on it, even if you're 3,000 miles away, even if you never want to see me again. I'm going to be better." I left the room and found my mother and Jade in the waiting room. They both stood when they saw me. I hugged my mother. She held me tightly, whispering apologies into my shoulder. I hugged Jade, who cried and told me she loved me. "I'm still moving to Seattle," I told them both. "I need distance and time. But maybe we can figure this out eventually." My mother nodded, wiping her eyes. "Well, be here, whenever you're ready." I drove home that night feeling lighter than I had in months. Not healed, not fixed, but seen. Finally seen. Over the next 2 weeks, I stayed in limited contact with my family. Short texts, brief phone calls, nothing too deep. I was processing everything that had happened, trying to figure out what kind of relationship I wanted moving forward. My father came home from the hospital and started cardiac rehabilitation. My mother sent me updates, respecting my boundaries but keeping me informed. Jade texted occasionally with pictures from campus, little updates about her classes and work. I focused on preparing for Seattle. I gave notice at my apartment, started selling furniture I didn't want to move, researched neighborhoods in the Pacific Northwest. My coworkers threw me a going-away party. I'd made genuine friendships at work, and leaving them was harder than I expected. Dr. Chen and I had several sessions about closure and new beginnings. She reminded me that healing isn't linear, that I might feel conflicted for a long time, and that was okay. The week before Christmas, my mother called with a request. "Roman," she said hesitantly, "would you come to Sunday dinner? Just once before you leave? Your father wants to see you. Jade will be home. It would mean a lot to all of us." I almost said no. The thought of sitting at that table again, in that house where everything had fallen apart, made me anxious. But Dr. Chen had asked me what closure would look like. Maybe this was it. One last dinner to see if anything had actually changed. I agreed. Sunday afternoon, I drove to my childhood home for the first time since walking out 2 months earlier. The house looked the same from outside, but I felt completely different approaching it. My mother opened the door before I could knock. She pulled me into a hug. "Thank you for coming," she said. Inside, the house felt quieter than I remembered. My father was sitting in his recliner, looking thinner and older. He stood when he saw me, moving carefully. "Roman," he said. "Thank you." Jade came down the stairs and smiled at me, genuine warmth in her eyes. We sat for dinner. My mother had made pot roast again, the same meal from that terrible night. But the atmosphere was completely different. Quiet, respectful, tentative. Nobody knew what to say at first. We passed dishes in silence, the clink of silverware the only sound. Finally, Jade spoke. "I arranged a payment plan with Northwestern," she said. "I'll graduate in 3.5 years instead of 4. It's not perfect, but I can make it work." She looked at me across the table, and I'm working hard. My grades are coming back up. I got an A on my last economics paper. "That's great, Jade," I said, and meant it. "I'm going to pay you back," she continued. "Every cent. It'll take years, but I will." I shook my head. It was a gift. "I don't want it back." "But I need to," she insisted. "Not because you're asking, but because I need to know I can give something back to you." "Well, see," I said, not wanting to argue. My father had been quiet, pushing food around his plate. Now he cleared his throat. "I've been thinking a lot," he said slowly. "About the things I said, about how I treated you your whole life, about what I taught you with my words and actions." He looked up at me. "I taught you that love has to be earned, that worth has to be proven, that giving is only valuable if it's recognized. And those are terrible lessons, Roman. Completely wrong." I listened, not sure where this was going. "You gave without needing recognition because that's who you are," he continued. "Not because I raised you right, but in spite of how I raised you, you're a better man than I ever was, and I'm sorry it took losing you for me to see that." The room was very quiet. Then my father stood up and left the room. He returned a moment later with a large manila envelope. He slid it across the table to me. Inside was a check for $30,000 and documents showing Head refinanced the house. "It's not nearly enough," he said, "but it's everything I have liquid right now. Take it. Start your life in Seattle right. Buy furniture. Build something for yourself. Let me give you something for once." I stared at the check. $30,000. Head refinanced the house, taken on new debt, to give me this money. I understood what he was doing. This was his way of mirroring my sacrifice, of trying to show he understood what giving meant. But I couldn't take it. I pushed the check back across the table. "Keep it," I said. "Fix your retirement fund. Help Jade when she needs it. Use it for Mom's car or house repairs or whatever comes up." My father's face crumpled. "Please," he said. "Let me do this." "You are doing something," I told him. "You're showing me you understand. That matters more than money. Just treat me like I matter. See me. That's all I ever wanted." My father started crying. Not quiet tears, but deep, racking sobs. My mother moved to his side, holding his hand. Jade reached across the table and gripped my arm. We sat together in that broken, tentative space. A family that had shattered learning how to be gentle with the pieces. After dinner, I helped my mother wash dishes. She worked beside me in comfortable silence, then spoke quietly. "Are you happy about Seattle?" "I think so," I said. "It feels like the right move. You'll do well there. You'll build a good life." "I hope so." She dried a plate carefully. "Will you come back to visit?" "Maybe," I said. "Eventually. When I'm ready." She nodded. "That's fair." My father appeared in the doorway. "Can we talk? Just the two of us?" We went to his small home office. He closed the door and gestured to a chair. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said, "but I want you to know I'm committed to change. I've started seeing a therapist. I'm working on understanding why I acted the way I did, why I projected my failures onto you." "That's good, Dad. And I'm going to write to you," he continued. "Not expecting responses, just keeping you updated on my progress. Showing you I'm serious about this." "Okay," I said. He handed me a small box. "This was my father's, your grandfather's. He gave it to me when I got my first real job. I want you to have it." Inside was a simple watch, nothing expensive, just a working man's timepiece. "Grandpa wore this every day," my father said. "It reminded him that time matters. How we spend it, who we spend it with, what we build with the hours we're given." I wore it for years, then stopped when I started defining my worth by money and status instead of character. I want you to have it now. Wear it or don't, but know what it represents. Time spent with integrity matters more than anything else. I took the watch, felt its weight in my hand. "Thank you," I said quietly. We stood awkwardly for a moment, then my father pulled me into a hug. It was stiff and uncertain, but genuine. "I'm proud of you, son," he said. "I always was, even when I couldn't say it." I left that evening feeling something I hadn't expected. Not closure exactly, but possibility. My family was trying, genuinely trying, to become people I could have a relationship with. Whether they'd succeed remained to be seen. But for the first time, I believed they might. 6 months after moving to Seattle, I stood in my apartment looking out at Puget Sound. The view was spectacular, water and mountains and evergreen trees stretching into the distance. My new place was bright and spacious, furnished with pieces I'd chosen myself. Modern couch, a real dining table, art on the walls. This was my space, built entirely for me. My job was challenging in the best way. I led a team of 5 engineers working on cloud infrastructure projects. My manager valued my input. My coworkers respected my expertise. I'd found a place where my contributions were seen and appreciated. I'd continued therapy with a new counselor in Seattle. Dr. Williams helped me process the family reconciliation and build my new life with intention. We talked about boundaries, about healthy relationships, about what it meant to give from a place of wholeness instead of depletion. I'd started dating someone. Harper was an urban planner who worked on affordable housing projects. We'd met at a community meeting about neighborhood development, and Shed impressed me with her passion and intelligence. Our relationship was still new, but it felt healthy, balanced. We gave to each other without keeping score. For the first time in my life, I was building something just for myself. Not in reaction to family expectations, not in service to someone else's dream, but genuinely for my own happiness. My relationship with my family had evolved in ways I hadn't expected. My mother and I video called every Sunday. She told me about her week, asked about mine, shared small updates about family and neighbors. Our conversations were warm and genuine. Shed became the mother it always needed, showing up consistently, asking real questions, seeing me clearly. Jade and I texted several times a week. She sent pictures from campus, complained about professors, asked for advice on internships and job applications. She was thriving despite the challenges. Her work ethic had intensified, and Shed become someone who understood the value of effort and sacrifice. Shed gotten an offer for a summer internship at a major consulting firm in Chicago. When she told me, her voice was full of pride and excitement. I got it, Roman, she said over the phone. The internship I really wanted. And you know what the recruiter said? She said my resume showed character. Working 2 jobs while maintaining good grades, taking an extra semester to graduate, managing my own finances. She said it showed resilience and maturity. I'm so proud of you, Jade, I said, meaning every word. That semester when everything fell apart, she continued. When I had to take out loans and work constantly, it taught me more than any class ever could. I learned what real sacrifice looks like. I learned what you did for me. You're doing great, I told her. You're going to be amazing at whatever you choose to do. My father and I had the most complex relationship. He sent me emails every few weeks, never demanding responses, just sharing his progress. He was in therapy, working through his issues with failure and self-worth. Had taken up woodworking, making simple furniture pieces and donating them to a homeless shelter. He was trying to learn how to give without needing recognition. His emails were honest in ways our conversations had never been. He wrote about his regrets, his ongoing work to change, his understanding of how deeply Head hurt me. He didn't ask for forgiveness, just wanted me to know he was trying. I responded occasionally, brief messages acknowledging his efforts. I wasn't ready for more, but I was open to the possibility that someday I might be. A week before Memorial Day, I received a call from Jade. Roman, she said, breathless with excitement. I need to ask you something. What's up? I'm graduating. Well, in December. But the ceremony is in December, and I really, really want you to be there. Not for Mom and Dad, though they'd love to see you, but for me, because none of this would have happened without you. I felt emotion tighten my throat. Of course he'll be there. I wouldn't miss it. She squealed with joy. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Memorial Day weekend, I flew back to Ohio for a family gathering at Aunt Carol's house. It was the first time I'd seen everyone since Christmas. The dynamics had shifted. Extended family treated me differently. Uncle Frank pulled me aside to tell me what I'd done for Jade showed real character. Cousins asked about Seattle with genuine interest. Aunt Carol hugged me tightly and said she was proud of me. At the barbecue, my father approached me at the grill. Had lost some weight, looked healthier. His therapist had him on a heart-healthy diet and exercise routine. Can I help? He asked, gesturing to the burgers. Sure. We stood side by side, flipping meat, basting with sauce. The silence between us was comfortable, not tense. I'm working on a bookshelf, he said after a while. Oak, doing all the joinery by hand. It's slow work, but satisfying. That sounds good, I said. Your mother wants to give it to you for Christmas, he continued. If that's okay. For your place in Seattle. I'd like that. He nodded, focused on the grill. Then quietly. I know I can't undo the past, Roman. But I'm working on being the father you deserved. Every day, I'm working on it. I can see that, I said. And it matters. He looked at me then, eyes wet. Thank you. That evening, the whole family gathered in Aunt Carol's backyard. Kids ran around playing tag. Adults sat in lawn chairs drinking beer and lemonade. Someone started a playlist of classic rock. The sun set slowly, painting the sky orange and pink. I sat with Harper, who'd flown out to meet my family. She fit in easily, charming my mother with questions about teaching, making Jade laugh with stories about city planning disasters. My father brought over 2 beers and handed one to me. He nodded at Harper. She's good for you. She is, I agreed. You look happy, son. I am. Good. He paused, then added. That's all I ever really wanted for you. I just got lost in my own stuff and forgot how to show it. We sat together watching the sunset. My father put a hand on my shoulder briefly, then let it rest there. A simple gesture, but full of meaning. Later, as the party wound down, I found myself alone for a moment on the back porch. I thought about the journey of the past year, leaving in anger, holding firm boundaries, watching my family learn hard lessons, beginning tentative reconciliation, building my own life in Seattle. I'd learned something crucial. True generosity isn't about silent martyrdom. It's not about giving until you're empty, hoping someone will notice and appreciate you. Real giving comes from wholeness, from a place of enough. When you give from depletion, you build resentment. When you give from fullness, you build connection. It also learned that family isn't defined by obligation. It's defined by mutual honor, by seeing and being seen, by choosing each other day after day. My family had failed me, but they'd also learned. They'd faced consequences, done hard work, and become capable of real relationship. My father had learned that pride destroys what it means to protect. His need to feel successful had blinded him to the success right in front of him. My mother had learned that silence in the face of injustice is participation. Her desire for peace had enabled cruelty. Jade had learned that entitlement blinds us to the sacrifices others make. Her focus on her own journey had made her miss mine entirely. And Id learned that I matter because I say I do, not because of what I give or achieve or sacrifice. Just because I exist, I have inherent worth. Anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve a place in my life. But when people truly change, when they do the hard work of transformation, there's room for healing. There's always room for healing. Harper came out to the porch. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just thinking." "Good thoughts?" "Complicated thoughts, but mostly good." She stood beside me, and we watched the stars come out over Ohio. The next morning, I flew back to Seattle. As the plane lifted off, I looked down at Columbus, growing smaller below. The city that had shaped me, wounded me, taught me. I pulled out my phone and texted my family group chat. "Thanks for this weekend. It was good to see everyone." My mother responded immediately. "We love you, Roman. Safe travels." Jade sent a heart emoji and a picture of her acceptance letter to the consulting internship. My father's response came a few minutes later. "Proud of you, son. Always have been, even when I couldn't say it. Come back soon." I smiled and put my phone away. In December, I flew back for Jade's graduation. I sat with my parents in the auditorium at Northwestern, watching students file across the stage. When they called Jade's name, we all stood and cheered. Afterward, at the celebration dinner, Jade stood to make a toast. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I want to thank my family for everything," she said, "but especially my brother Roman. He gave me opportunities I could never have had otherwise. He sacrificed so I could succeed. And when things fell apart, when I learned what had done, it changed me. It taught me what real love looks like. Not the flashy kind that demands recognition, but the quiet kind that just shows up. Roman, I'm going to spend my life trying to be worthy of what you gave me." She raised her glass. "To Roman." Everyone echoed. "To Roman." I felt seen. Truly, completely seen. That night, texting Harper from my hotel room, I wrote, "Heading home tomorrow. And for the first time, I have two places that feel like home. Ohio made me who I am. Seattle is where I became who I was meant to be." She responded, "Can't wait to have you back. I missed you." I fell asleep feeling at peace. The journey from invisible son to honored brother had been painful, but worth it. It enforced boundaries, demanded respect, walked away when necessary, and returned when genuine change appeared. It left to find out if I mattered. I came back because I already knew the answer. I matter because I say I do. And the people who love me, truly love me, see that now. They see me. Finally, they see me. And that makes all the difference. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Have you given everything only to feel unappreciated? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life narratives about family, boundaries, and finding yourself. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their worth isn't determined by what they give, but by who they are. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminded you that you matter, always, just as you are. Take care of yourself, and remember that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away until people learn to see you clearly.